Hey y'all, it's Caitlin. So it's June, and June is Gay Pride Month. It's something that definitely gets acknowledged, but I don't feel gets acknowledged as much as it should. So I thought, what's the best way for me to celebrate Pride Month? Wait, y'all know I'm gay. Which is the best way for me to celebrate Pride Month here on YouTube? And with me being a Funko channel, of course, is to make a top 5 wants video of Pride characters that I want in Funko Pop more. And just to make it a little bit more personal to me, I'm doing comic characters. So, like always, if you've seen most of my top 5s before, I don't usually put them in order because I want them all pretty much equally. There is a couple on this list that I would like more than others, but I'm still putting them, I'm not putting them like 5 through 1 or whatever, because I want them all. I want them all. And again, I'm staying clear of characters that have already been made. So, you know, I'm not going to say another thing of another pop of Wonder Woman, even though they can make all the Wonder Woman pops they want. I will buy them. I will buy them. But anyway, so I tried to, I could have done this all with DC comic characters, just putting that out there. But I wanted to include a couple from other comic franchises as well, and I had to have at least one Marvel, which, again, I'm into Marvel, just not as into Marvel as a lot of other people are. So my best friend, instead of being like, I love DC, I love Marvel, she reads books that have LGBTQ characters in them. That's it, pretty much. She won't really read a comic that doesn't have a character in the community with in it. So I knew she'd be the perfect person to ask for Marvel characters. And the first person she listed was the first person that I was thinking of as well. So I'm like, that's the one I'm going to pick. But Samantha, if you're watching this, all the others that you listed, I promise I will get around to reading those books eventually. Just not right now. But anyway, so we kind of chose together to do Angela. By the way, I'm also doing like going through the abbreviations for the community to do one of each letter. It'll make sense as we go through. But for the lesbian, we're doing Angela. So Angela is pretty popular in comic book media. She's been in Guardians of the Galaxy. She had her own book called Angela, Queen of Hell. Basically, her story is that she's a daughter of Odin, and she was kidnapped as an infant, I believe, and raised to be a bounty hunter instead of the princess that she was meant to be. So, obviously, we have some, like, Xena vibes coming off her just a little bit. So, that's why I loved her from the beginning. Also, she fell in love with Sarah, or Sarah, whichever way you choose to pronounce it, which for a long time was Marvel's, or still could be, most featured trans character. So her book featured a lot of LGBT pride, so I feel like it should get acknowledged a little bit more. There have been action figures, there's been statues made of her. We just haven't got a pop yet. I want a pop of Angela. Can you imagine the design of this pop if they made Angela? Because she has a lot of detail to her design. I imagine she's a pretty hard character just to draw because of all the stuff that comes off of her. But I think it would be amazing, and we have a lot of lesbian characters already made into pops, and gays for that matter. Again, not as many as straights, but I think Angela would do good to represent the lesbian community in comics in this sense. Anyway, so the next is the G. So, you know, gay, which they usually just means gay guys. But this is the one I kind of bent my own rules because there's two. I try not to put couples on the list, but this one I really couldn't get away from doing one without the other, because these characters mean a lot to me. And it's Sylvan and Krilt from Birds of Prey comics. I know most of y'all are thinking, like, who? Because I don't think they've ever been in any other comics besides Birds of Prey. But you guys have been here for a while, you've heard me say that there was a comic book that changed my life. Birds of Prey number 59 was it, and Sylvan and Krilt were in it. Basically, they're kind of like They're the bad guys in this comic. Spoiler alert, they don't end up that way. But that happens way down the road. But for this one, they weren't the good guys. They were the villains. And basically, Solvent wants revenge on Batman because he tried to be a hero, but he just went a little too far. And they're using Black Canary as kind of like blackmailing. They kidnap Black Canary and is telling her partner Oracle, which they all know that, you know, Black Canary works with Oracle, to find out the identity of Batman for him. Because everyone knows Oracle, like, you know, the master of finding out anything about anyone cybernetically. Of course, they don't know that she already knows that Batman's Bruce Wayne, but anyway. But they've kidnapped Dinah, broken both of her legs, chained her to a mattress in their attic, and she had to break one of her wrists to get out of the cuffs. And yeah, needless to say, she's in a lot of pain, and she's not liking these guys too well. But there's a fight scene at the end of the story arc where Oracle hacks their computers and draws Solvent out of the room. Dinah looks at Kriot and says, "Does Solvent know you're in love with him?" And Kriot's like, "No, he does not." Kriot's like his right-hand guy. Not his henchman, but like his best friend that's helping him out. But anyway, and Kriot's like, "No, he doesn't know I'm in love with him." He kind of is in a shock, like Dinah could figure that out, so he's just like being truthful. And I first read this comic when I was in 10th grade. That was when, about a year after I almost successfully brainwashed myself into being straight. When I was in middle school, I used to go around chanting into my head all the time, like, I can't be gay, that's a sin, I can't be a lesbian, I'm a good girl, all that crap. And Dinah was a character I loved already from Justice League Unlimited, and that's why I read the Birds of Prey comics that she was featured in. And so in the split second or even milliseconds that it takes my eyes to go from that one speech bubble to the next, I'm thinking, well, she knows he's gay, that's just going to make her hate her or them even more. And Dinah says, "Just wondering." It wasn't a big deal. And I remember reading the rest of the page, I'm like, is that all they're gonna say about it? That's really it? That's it? Like, no reaction, no nothing? Like, really? Really? And, you know, I looked at the next page, I'm like, no, they're still not talking about it. And it was the first time I've ever been introduced to the concept that being gay isn't a big deal. It's not necessarily a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just a normal thing. And it was the first time I have ever seen that, and I stared at that page for probably a good 20 minutes. Not even that page, but just that one panel. And when I finally turned the page and finished the rest of the book, I went right back to that page and stared at it for another 10 minutes to make it a full 30 minutes I was looking at that page, just staring at it. That's the comic that changed my life. That night, I went to my room, looked myself in the mirror, and said 2 words out loud that I've never even thought to say in my head. I was too scared to even say it in my head. It was the first night I said, "I'm gay." That's why it's the book that changed my life. That's why Solvent and Kriot's relationship, which while it didn't develop right then, but while our characters and the Birds of Prey characters in general mean an awful lot to me. So to have a pop of Kriot and Solvent, even though it's never gonna happen, never ever gonna happen, it would mean the world to me if we got them as pops. So that's why I had to include them both, because as you guys can tell, I was trying to talk a little bit about the characters and not just how I feel about the characters, but for that one I had to make an exception. But you can tell how passionate I am about these guys. So anyway, let's move let's move on to the B. So B is for bisexual. And I chose a character, again from DC, that his sexuality doesn't really get mentioned too much. In fact, you pretty much have to be a really good, fan to even know about it. And that is Catman, who is mostly seen in Secret Six comics. So, Catman is someone who pretty much had to be forced to survive. He was cast out into the wilderness of Africa. Is Africa the wilderness, or is it more like just the desert, I guess? You would put it better to say the desert instead of wasteland. But he got really connected to the big cats, the lions, that was in the Sahara. And they became like his family. His father abused him, and so that kind of messed him up a little bit. And it was honestly being with these wild cats that saved his life in a way. He's kind of like a anti-villain, I guess you could say. He doesn't mind to kill, like poachers he'll go after nonstop. Poachers are dead when they go near him. But that being said, he's not trying to kill anyone. He's not really trying to do anything bad. He's a character that's, to me, very misunderstood. He's really like a father figure to a lot of the characters in Secret Six, especially Secret Six, New 52 version of Secret Six. And in the older version of Secret Six, before New 52, I'm starting a comic series on my channel this month. Secret Six will be featured eventually, so all this will make sense then, I promise. But he was like he was a core member of the group. He was like a brother to the old one, a father to the newer versions of the comic book characters. He's just a very interesting character, and again, it's a one that his sexuality isn't deeply expressed, in every single book. But to me, those are just as important. Because again, I was saying in the last one, sometimes it's good not to have your sexuality be in the spotlight all the time. It's good to just think of it as normal. Like, don't ignore it, but don't necessarily put a big spotlight on it either. So that's why I like Catman a lot. I like his character, I like reading his stories, and again, he's just a character that's just very nonchalant about it. And every now and then, that's very refreshing. So for T, I chose another probably lesser known character, and it's from an Aftershocks comic. So Aftershocks is nowhere near as large as DC or Marvel, but they are still pretty, I don't want to say really well known. Like they're definitely known, but they're just not as popular. But they made a comic called Alters, I think 2 years ago, I want to say, and it starred a girl named Chalice. So in the Alters world, it's a little bit like the X-Men, where you have these Alters who are mutants. They all have powers. I don't really want to say they're cast out from society, but there's pretty much two groups. There's one that fights for people, there's one who fights against normal people and pretty much uses their powers to get their own kind of way. So Chalice is on the good side, and she is transgender. So one thing I love about this compared to other transgender characters in comics, usually you see them, and not just comics, like most media. I'm sure there are several novels that feature transgenders in the way I'm talking about them now, which I'm gonna get to in a minute. But usually when you see them in TV shows, movies, comics, it's after their transition. In Chalice, you're seeing it during her transition. Like, she's just now getting to the point, like, she's not out to her family yet, she's not out to her friends yet. She's able to be herself when she's in her costume, when she's in her superhero costume. That's when she's finally able to, put away everything that identifies her as a man and is able to embrace her true self. And I feel that is something very, very important. I have friends who are transgender, and while I can't even imagine what it's like to personally go through that kind of challenge, I know it's very difficult. Especially when it comes to coming out to your family and friends. And we do eventually see her come out to two people who are very important in her life. But I think it's a very, very well written story, all of it. I'm not going to get into the complete bio about the entire story now. But it's very well written. Unfortunately, Aftershocks is known for their hiatuses. So we got, I want to say, 8, maybe 10 books. Last year, and we haven't seen hide or hair of Walters ever since. Eventually, hopefully it'll come back, but Aftershocks is just known for, you know, doing their hiatuses. So I find it very unlikely that we'll see this character, just because Aftershocks likes to do that, and they don't really have time for their characters to become popular to me, but whatever. But anyway, so, but I think Chalice is a really cool character, and again, she's one of the rare few where you get to see their transition, which is very, very important. So last but not least, we're gonna skip the Q, because the Q, it's on its own, but at the same time, it's kind of the over umbrella term. So let's skip that for now, and go to A. So, a lot of people, at least when I was starting to get into the LGBTQ community, a lot of people I saw was kind of misinformed. I don't know if that's still the case. I'm hoping it's not. But when you see the extended abbreviation, it's LGBTQA. A lot of people think that A stands for alliance. You know, in other words, for like, you know, straight people who are completely fine with gays having full and equal rights. It doesn't. A does not stand for alliance. Don't get me wrong. We love our alliance people. We love y'all. But that's not what the A stands for. The A stands for asexual. So asexual is an umbrella term. The clear cut meaning that people don't have sexual attraction whatsoever. I've known some. They don't get in a relationship stronger than what best friends have with each other, more like a sibling kind of relationship almost. They don't feel anything romantic, they don't feel anything sexual towards people, and they're perfectly fine that way. Others I've seen do want romantic relationships, they just don't want sexual relationships. And a lot of times that's kind of hard stuff to explain. So I feel like them not even being acknowledged most of the time with the abbreviation, it's just like an extra little knife in the back. I really feel like so. To have asexual characters in comics, I feel like is very important. Off the top of my head, I only know of 2. Jughead from the Archie comics, and then the one I'm talking about, Tremor from DC. So Tremor was mostly seen in the Movement comic, and again, that's another comic that we're gonna get to. That might actually be my first one that I talk about in my comic series. But Tremor is a character that isn't very well known, which again is something that most characters in the Movement have in common. But she's also, again, one of the few I know that is asexual. And the Movement is known for having a lot of LGBTQ characters in their pages. But again, for them to acknowledge asexuality, that's something amazing. Obviously, her powers, you can probably guess from her title. By the way, Chalice, I completely skipped over her power. Her powers is manipulating gravity. Tremor's power is manipulating the earth. She can cause, like, earthquakes and stuff. Obviously, a very powerful power. But, I can't really say too much about her without spoiling it. Spoiling the entire Movement comics, which I'm gonna do in another video. So let me just say, I write fan fiction, or I used to. It's been almost a year since I uploaded. But in one of my stories, I made a main character from the series I was basing it on asexual. It's not canon. It's just something that I thought fit. And I got a comment back on it saying, "Thank you for doing this. I'm asexual myself, and it's just really hard to find representation." I was never more proud of a work I've done until I read that. And I was also kind of heartbroken at the same time. I don't like to get into it too much because it's a really long explanation, but I do kind of consider myself a little bit asexual. There's gray asexuality, which I consider myself to be a part of. And it's kind of hard when you don't see people or any kind of media involving asexuals. And I could very much relate to that when I was a kid and didn't even see any gay. Like, literally, when I was a kid, there was that one girl from Golden Girls. That one episode of the Golden Girls where Dorothy's friend Jean comes in and falls in love with Rose. That was pretty much all I had in terms of a lesbian role model or whatever. So I can definitely understand not seeing a lot of representation growing up and even still as an adult. So to have more asexual characters in comics, I feel is very important, and that's why I think we should acknowledge the ones that are, including Tremor. So anyway, guys, so that was my top 5 Funko ones of Pride characters from comics. There are so many more. Again, I could have done this entire list just on DC. Just on DC. Or even probably just on Marvel. Marvel too, if I really wanted to. But I feel like Pride Month is something that shouldn't be forgotten. I feel like it's something that shouldn't be overlooked, and I feel like it's something that shouldn't just be written off as unimportant. Because to a lot of us, it means a hell of a lot. So anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you stuck around to the end. And again, there will be a comic series starting very, very soon. I plan on filming it hopefully sometime this week. So if y'all want to know more about the movement, which I'm pretty sad that's going to be my first one if I can find the comics. If I can find at least one of the comics, I'll do it. But yeah. So hopefully you guys can learn a little bit more about Tremor and her friends in that video. And again, please list down below which Pride character you would want to see in comics. I know we're getting a new Batwoman, hopefully. We've seen the concept art. We haven't seen like an actual pop yet, so hopefully that's still in the works and we're gonna get a Batwoman pop, but who knows. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed, and hope you all got a little bit of entertainment and education a little bit out of this. And please remember, like always, it's a community, both Funko, LGBTQ community, just a regular human community. It's a community and not a competition. I'll see y'all later. Bye.